One of the objections that I hear levied against the concept of personality type theory, specifically the MBTI concept and its variant forms, is the this charge of saying you can't put me in a box, or I am more than four letters. And I would like to say you're correct. You are more than four letters. The concept of calling someone an ISFJ or an ENTP or something of that nature, I can understand how, at a just sort of a surface level glance, how that would feel to some people like, oh, you're trying to label me, you're trying to narrow me down, you think you can figure me out, and that I'm just as simple as four letters. But that really isn't the goal or the point or the heart of personality type theory. We are regularly, as human beings, trying to narrow down and define the things that are within our experiences, right? We differentiate between reptiles and amphibians, or between different types of birds. That's an eagle, and that's a buzzard, and that's a blue jay. And we practice the art of taxonomy, which is the identifying of things and categorizing them. And we understand them better because we do that. If we were to say, oh, you can't call that eagle an eagle. Don't limit that eagle to a word or try to put it in a box. If anybody were to suggest that, we would scoff at that idea and say, that's nonsense. We're simply categorizing this species of animal based on a number of characteristics that cause it to be able to be differentiated from this other species of animal, or likened to a similar species, right? I mean, an eagle is more like a buzzard than it is like a hippopotamus. And we have no trouble practicing this sort of categorization. Now, when it comes to categorizing human beings, all the real point of personality type theory is simply to try to better understand why some human beings tend to think this way or behave this way, while other human beings tend to think that way or behave that way. And when we can create these definitions, and we can separate, if you will, these people from these people, then it will help us, or it can help us if we choose to use it that way, to better relate to those people, because we know that they tend to think and behave this way, and also to be able to better relate to those people because we know that they tend to think and behave that way. So consider this. If I were to observe you encountering 10 difficulties in life, okay? And I were a fly on the wall, and I got to really see how you dealt with those 10 problems. And then at the end of that time, I came to you and I said, I've noticed that when you face difficulties in life, you tend to approach the dealing with those difficulties with a more analytical, fact-based thought process, and you tend not as much to allow your emotions, your feelings, or your preferences to sway how you deal with the problem. Rather, you tend to analyze the problem and think through it in a more calculated, maybe even one could say cold way. And then you attack the problem in a more logical fashion, not allowing your emotions or feelings so much to get in the way. If I went to almost anybody and said something like that. And the reverse may be true too, right? I may be able to say, after observing you dealing with these 10 problems, I've noticed that you tend to be more of a go with your gut, or a more, you allow your feelings on the matter to hold a heavy sway over your decision making. And you don't always allow just the cold analytical facts to make up your mind, but rather you really listen to your emotions and your feelings as you're going through these problems. If I were to come to a person and tell them that I've observed them encounter 10 difficulties in a row and they tend to be this or be that, right? One of those two things. Most people would probably not say, whoa, you can't limit me like that. You can't put me in that box. Most people would probably think about that, think that through. And if they're willing to be honest with themselves, would probably say, yeah, that is very true of me. I can see how you would have observed that, especially thinking back on the last 10 issues that I faced and how I handle them. I understand why you consider me to be a person who tends to tends to gravitate toward more analytical approach to problem solving versus allowing my feelings or emotions to sway me, or the opposite. And people would not generally be upset with you if you were able to make that observation and present it to them. Another thing, you might go to somebody and you might say, I've noticed that you tend to be a person who focuses very heavily on the physical reality around you. You care a lot about, maybe it's the organization of the physical world around you, or maybe it's you really are a person who enjoys exploring the physical world. But I've noticed that you place a higher priority on that than you do on exploring the philosophical world or organizing your philosophical belief system. So, and I'm giving cursory examples, very broad overview examples. But if you went to a person, and if that's true of that person, and you presented that thought to that person would probably say, yeah, you're right. I do tend to care more or focus more on the physical reality that I can taste, touch, smell, more so than I do on abstract or philosophical concepts, or vice versa. I notice that you are a person who focuses very heavily on the abstract or philosophical world, or I notice that you're a person that really thinks about ideas, or you're really focused on the future, more so than you are focused on the now, or more so than you are focused on the real, the tangible reality that sits right in front of you. Many people would probably say, yeah, you're right. I do tend to do that. And most people, if you presented it like that, would not say, hey, don't limit me, man. Now, of course, everybody does do everything. People who tend to have a more analytical approach will at times allow their emotions and their feelings to sway them more than they normally do. And people who tend to follow their feelings, their emotions, their heart, so to speak, will at times realize, I have to take a more analytical approach to solving this problem, more so than they normally do. And people who are very focused on the here and the now, on the physical world around them, will at times be very concerned about the abstract or the philosophical or the theoretical. And people who tend to live in the theoretical realm will at times care more about and be focused more on the real, the here, the now, the physical. But as a general rule, if you just said to a person, I notice that generally speaking, you prefer to focus on this thing more than you focus on that thing, most people, if they're being honest, would say, yeah, that is really true of me. That is really the heart of what personality theory is trying to do. It's not saying you're this robot that we can look at and completely predict everything that you're going to do. Although there are times when understanding personality theory does help you to predict how somebody is going to behave, and it's amazing sometimes how accurately you can predict it. But that's really not the heart and soul of it. The heart and soul of it is to say, this person over here focuses on a more analytical thinking way of dealing with life than they do on an emotional feeling way of dealing with life. And if I know that about you, then I can allow that to influence and inform my approach whenever I come to you with a matter. I should not, if you are a person who cares more about the more hard data, analytical way of looking at things, I should not come to you with an emotional appeal that will probably not work for you. But if I come to you and say, look, I've studied the data, and here are the 5 points that I think you need to understand so that you can see my point of view. And I give you those 5 points in a very unemotional way, you're probably more likely to be swayed by that. But for someone who cares more about feeling and emotion than they do about the cold data, coming to that person with just, hey, listen, here are 5 analytical points that I have drawn up, and I'm going to present them to you so that you can see my point of view. That person will probably be left feeling empty by the lack of emotion in the way that you presented your thoughts. So understanding this about a person can be of great benefit. Nobody is trying to say that you are only 4 letters. Nobody is trying to put you in a box. All the personality type theory is trying to do is to help categorize the general tendencies of certain people so that we can relate to them better, understand them better, and have better relationships with them. Oh, you tend to favor thinking over feeling. Oh, you tend to favor sensing over intuition. Oh, you tend to, when you do interact with the intuitive realm, you tend to do it in a more extroverted way than in an introverted way. You prefer to understand how other people are feeling more so than you understand how you are feeling. That is just a categorization. It's in general, you tend to be more like this than you are like that. And we just do that in all sorts of other realms and have no problem with it at all. We have no problem saying that, oh, that person over there is more athletic than that person over there. The person who's not very athletic, I mean, unless they're being unrealistic and they think they're so athletic when they're not, will probably be like, yeah, I'm definitely not, going to make it in pro sports. And they're not saying, hey, don't limit me, man. Don't put me in a box. Now, maybe they will make it in pro sports, right? I mean, you have those exceptions. I understand that because we all can do everything, especially if we set our mind and are like, no, I am going to, put my nose to the grindstone and I'm going to do this. But it doesn't change the fact that really at the heart of your brain, there is a certain wiring that causes you to tend to prefer doing things this way over doing things that way. And really, that's all that personality type theory is trying to get at, so that, again, we can better understand one another and have better relationships. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video informational, entertaining, or valuable in some way. If you did, please click like. Please subscribe if you have not already. And thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Bye now.